I'd like to tell you how my wife and I, in just 4 years, have achieved what I consider to be financial freedom. Now, that does not mean that I'm flying around in a private jet, but this does mean that we can choose to work jobs that we want to, that we're not living paycheck to paycheck, that we have enough security financially to be able to choose to do the things that we want to do and to invest our time and our money into achieving what we choose. And that's what I consider to be real financial freedom, right? Freedom to choose and do what you want to do. So, my wife and I have been married for 5 years. 4 years ago, we went through a period of very rocky finances. So we were working jobs at the time that we had some unstable income. We had a lack of prediction on what our next income was going to be. And we had a little bit of debt. We had maybe about $15,000 in debt, something like that. It was mostly on like 0% credit cards at that point in time from various things we had done. And it was causing us a lot of stress. And we really didn't know. We were very much living paycheck to paycheck, but we didn't know when the next paycheck was going to arrive or how much it was going to be for. So it was a very stressful financial situation. And at that point, when you're in that mind frame, that situation, you're only looking at what's happening currently, and you're not really able to push things into the future like you'd like to do. So to remedy this, my wife goes to the library and she gets every single book that they had on personal finance, budgeting, um, not necessarily like investing in economics, but anything relating to finances and personal finances and budgeting. And I was like stacked like 15 books, and she goes through each one, and it's everything from like children's books on budgeting that you can read it in like half an hour to like college level textbooks on corporate finance and this kind of stuff. Those ones she obviously didn't read, and there was some that was like completely nonsense, and we didn't read those ones. But we went through, we found a couple of very workable principles and very workable pieces of information that we were able to adopt and start using and implementing immediately that set us on this path that we've now achieved. Over the past 4 years, basically, maybe four years, we've been able to generate an excess of $250,000 beyond our expenses that we've been able to invest into things that are valuable and important to us, right? It's a lot of money in just 4 years for two people. Starting off with jobs making basically $15 an hour, living in California in a very expensive area. So that was what we did. Now, the way we did this, like the very first step we did was just to track every single expense, and this was the very beginning, and something that I think anyone can do. Um, it's the same principle with losing weight. Like if you can't go on a crazy diet, just tracking your weight, just getting on that scale every single day, and noticing that number begins the process of at least changing the mindset, changing the way you're thinking about things to improve the condition in the future. And you measure it first, right? Measure what matters. Um, I forget the business person who said that, someone in the 70s. John Dewar? Anyway, doesn't matter. I might be getting those things mixed up, so I'm going to keep going here. So it was painful at first, but we would sit down on the couch, and I remember very clearly, and we would go through every single transaction. My wife would have her laptop, and she'd be typing into Excel, and I would go through the credit card statements, and I'd go through the bank statements, and we had multiple credit cards that she was using or I was using. We had debit cards, we had cash transactions, all these kinds of things, and you'd have to put them all in one place. And it was painful at first, right? And maybe I didn't want to tell my wife that I'd spent X amount of dollars at the grocery store, or why had that bill been so much, or I'd stopped off here and gotten food that I wasn't supposed to, these kind of things. And I knew that we had very stiff targets to make rent, and so it was very stressful to do that. But over the process of a few months, we were able to sort of get things under control. We ended up we found an app that we use, which was accompanying one of the books that we had originally read and found out, and that kind of helped us to systematize things. And then I could, if I was going to the store or she was going to the store, we could check the app and we could see, what we had allocated in that budget. So the basic fundamental of what we were doing, like the basic principle would be if you had envelopes, and at the beginning of the month you say, great, I've got $1,000 for rent, and you put that in the envelope, and I've got $500 for food, and you put that in the envelope, and you're physically paying the cash. Except we're not going to do cash. So we had that allocation in those categories, and at the beginning of the month, we would decide. We knew rent was going to be X amount. We knew what our food costs were basically going to be, more or less, right? We knew what phone bills were going to be. When we set aside all these different categories, I won't go into the specifics exactly of how we do the budget in this video, but if you're interested, please let me know. Put a thing down in the comments, and my wife and I can get more into detail on that specific topic. It's something that we've been very successful at, and we continue to do to this day. So, but just looking at what we were spending and understanding, where those categories were, and she had things that she was spending money on that she didn't have to. I had money that I was spending things on that I didn't have to, and so just not necessarily curtailing that, but confronting it and realizing that everything you do is a choice. Every action you take and every dollar you spend is a decision, and you are deciding to spend that money on this thing and not spend it on this thing. So if anyone ever says, oh, I can't afford to do this or I can't afford to do that, it is not a matter of affording, it is a matter of choosing. Because you know that you can spend money on something else that is more important to you. And that is totally, totally fine. And we made those decisions, and we made some very, very tough decisions, and didn't go to friends' weddings that we would have been amazing to go to, lifelong friends. And we decided not to go to those weddings because we knew that that money for us would set us back on our financial targets. And I would not be here today being able to tell you that within 4 years, my wife and I would have been able to generate $250,000 additional to what our expenses are, over our expenses, right? And so that was the first step, was figuring out our finances, understanding what our expenses actually were, and really understanding and confronting what those true expenses were. Uh, and so when we're able to do that, then you're not surprised by Christmas. You're not surprised by birthdays or office parties or whatever these random expenses. You're not surprised by the flat tire because you're predicting it. It's going to happen eventually. So you might as well just predict it, right? And so we were able to do that going forward. And then from that point, we were able to take a little bit of extra money. We had a little bit of surplus then. We were able to create a surplus, and we were able to pay down the debt. And we were able to create another surplus and invest in ourselves, invest into new skills, invest into new knowledge, right? Invest into things that were important to us, and things that we knew would improve us and our ability to produce more income. So the more skills I got, and the more certain and calm I became, the more stable I became as an individual, the more I was able to produce more income, and my wife the same. And just in that time frame, our income has exploded. And you see, like, we actually put down on a graph both our individual income but especially our household income, and our expenses basically remain the same. Our expenses are basically the same as what they were when we were making $15 an hour, living in Orange County, California, versus now when we're well into our careers. We're both in management positions at our companies now, and we were able to uh, earn those positions because of our investing into ourselves and our knowledge and our experience. So, um, taking that surplus and understanding that when you only have a small surplus, there's no, yeah, maybe if I'd bought Bitcoin at $200 or something, um, but that's so much of a gamble, and it's unreliable, right? And I'm always about, do something that you know is a certain guarantee, and I know that the only actual guarantee in my life is myself. Um, and no matter what happens, no matter what happens in the country, in the economy, on this planet, this world, it doesn't matter. I know that with my certainty, that I have my ability to produce, and my ability to produce value and exchange with other people, and I can exchange that for goods and services and money. Uh, and I knew that the best investment I could make was always in myself. And so we took that extra money and we invested into ourselves, and that increased our income even more. We took that money, invested into ourselves, and so forth. And we keep stacking and stacking and stacking. We acquire all these skills, and now we're at a point where we have absolute certainty and absolute security, both financially and how I say, like, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is, that no matter what happens to us, we have the certainty that we can survive and we can figure things out. So, and financially, we have months paid into the future. I could lose my job tomorrow. It would never happen, but let's just say it did. My wife as well. The mortgage is covered. I can find another job. I can flip couches or whatever if I had to, and we've kept our expenses low enough that we know that, like, what we need monthly, I can get that very, very quickly. We actually cover most of our expenses with basically 1.5 our paychecks. We still live on less than half of our total income. And that's been a very successful action for us, is making sure that we keep our expenses super, super low and keep our income going up. So there's obviously a lot more to the story, but I kind of wanted to just get that out there and tell people, how we've been so successful at that. And that I do think there is a system to it. There's a procedure to it. It is learnable. It is something that can be taught. It does require discipline. It requires a little bit of intelligence, but not that much. It mostly requires discipline and persistence and having a goal and pushing towards that goal, which, like anything in life, is success. So I hope that helps give a little bit more context. I hope that if anyone's interested in the specific details, please let me know. I'm happy to go into specifics. My name is Rob Witt. I didn't say that at the beginning of the video, but my name is Rob Witt, and I'd love to tell you more of these stories and see how I can help you do the same. So thank you guys. Bye-bye.